Yeah, good evening, everyone, or morning, depending on where you're joining from the world today. Welcome to Soda Social's live panel discussion, Talking Tech, Women's Health Reimagined. We've partnered with our good friends at Code Institute again. For those who aren't aware, we're running a hackathon this Friday at Google, which is super exciting. And this panel will influence all of that. Code Institute are the world's first credit-rated coding bootcamp. We've been running these events with them for a few years now, the aim of creating the next generation of career-ready developers. This is going to be part of the resource for their discovery sessions, and we'll be contributing to the hackathon on Friday, but also everyone that's just joined from the wider Soda Social community, welcome. It's great to have you tuned in. For this webinar, you can expect an hour of panel discussion with a live Q&A at the end, and there'll probably be about half an hour of networking at the end for those who want to continue on. My name's Adam Brinkley. I head up the UK team here at Trust in Soda, and I'll be the host and chair for the webinar. I want to make this discussion as engaging as possible. So if you've got any questions for our panel throughout, just feel free to ask them in the side panel or save them for the Q&A at the end. Lastly, before we kick things off, please note that this is being recorded, so don't swear. Not that any of you would, but it will also be uploaded to our Soda Social YouTube channel, where you can also access all of our upcoming webinars and podcasts too. I'd like to introduce our fantastic panel. We've got 3 industry experts with a clear passion for building a safer, more equitable future for women using tech. If you folks could all just do a quick intro, your role, your experience, and what brings you here today. Let's start with you, Pablo.
Oh, nice. Thank you. Well, I'm Pablo Solano, product design manager at Flow. For those of you who don't know Flow, we are a period/health app. We've been around for a while. As of this year, we became the biggest health female app in the world, which is a daunting thing to say, but equally exciting. I've been a product designer for about 10 years now, designing for startups and big and large corporations as well. And I'm joining this fantastic panel because I love to see what's going on the FemTech space. I started out my career in FemTech, and it feels a full circle to be back after seeing a lot of design and products in different industries, and also to get to learn a little bit as well about what's going on in other sides of the space.
Awesome. Great to have you joining us. We'll move on to Smriti.
Hi, everyone. So I'm Smriti, Senior Product Manager at Elvie. For you who don't know Elvie, it's an established femtech space since 10 years. They were the first to launch a product for the vagina. I think we can say that word. 13 years ago as a pelvic floor trainer, so it's very big in a connected space. In 2019, it launched the first wireless breast pump, so really giving kind of that freedom to women to breast pump more practically. Instead of being connected to a wall, it really fits in your bra. You can walk around. It really is a fantastic product. And the founder, Tanya Bowler, she now runs a fantastic podcast also called Skin Like a Rhino, which I highly recommend as well. From my perspective, I used to work as well at Sky Sports as a senior product manager on personalization for 3 years. But yeah, I switched to FemTech because I really wanted to be more mission-driven and contribute to problems that I care more about. So really excited to be here, really excited to see what's getting built, and excited to be there Friday as well.
Awesome. Great to have you on board. And last up, Rachel.
Hi, everyone. I am Rachel O'Donnell. I am here representing both Code Institute and the students of Code Institute. I am a past student of Code Institute, graduated last year, and I'm also a past hackathon winner. So it's wonderful to be here, to be talking about such a really important topic. And also, I'm so excited to be on this side of the hackathon, to see how many people that we can support throughout the week. And I'm very excited. I've already seen some of the ideas for the project, so I'm super excited.
Awesome. Well, let's get into it then, shall we? So there's a number of questions that I'm going to throw out to the panel, and then we're going to have a nice debate and see where the conversation takes us. So first up is all about getting started. So what would you say is the first step someone should take when beginning to develop a FemTech product idea?
Maybe I can take that one up. I really think it is about having a problem to solve. So it all said and done, I think women's problems have been ignored for a very long time. So the positive part is there are a bunch of problems that still need to get solved. But I really kind of recommend honing specifically into a problem statement. And understanding kind of the users. In order to understand the problem that you want to tackle, you have to get into the user's pain points, ideally look at anything you can find online. There are a lot of fantastic surveys that are accessible. There's Elvie that just launched the Mother Load kind of survey. There's Fertility that has launched a recent survey. So we know that there have been a lot of stats that have been ignored for a long time. So thankfully, the industry is kind of shifting, and there's a lot more stats and data available to us today to understand the users better. So yeah, I'd look into tapping into existing kind of research that we have on the FemTech space, and really kind of crafting a really clear, concise, and precise, problem statement.
Brilliant, brilliant insights. Very, very helpful. Who wants to jump on that one next?
I think something that I want to also in this age, I feel one of the things that I've seen as well is that the main source of that identify how you identify that problem space is the user. And I think as obvious as that sounds, I see that a lot of thing in product development shifted from talking to the users to just doing more and more those using more and more those remote tools. And I would definitely encourage people to just go back 8 years ago when we were actually doing diary studies and seeing how people actually interact with products and what problems they have, because you learn a lot from that. And there's obviously this gap that being on a screen gives us. So one of the things that I would definitely suggest, especially if you're student in hackathon, is just talk to whoever you wanna be talking to, and speak to them and see what their day looks like, because you can learn a lot from that. And you can help define, it can help define your product and your tone of voice and how your user experience is going to be. You can get a lot from those conversations.
Excellent. Rachel, anything to add on that one?
I think just from our students' perspective, I think exactly those kind of things, like thinking about problem first, having those thinking about the UX and the UI. I think sometimes some of the best apps that I do use, it's the difference of something like that, of like, oh, they've thought of this one other connection, or this one, or that their user flow is easier than another app, or it's like prettier. It's like all of those things that make a difference. But I think from the student's perspective, I think as well, just think about how to communicate really clearly with your team. Each team will have a varying level of students depending on where they are in their learning journey. There might be someone who is just 2 weeks into their course, so is like barely learning HTML, and you might have someone who has graduated the course, has done 3 hackathons. So I think just really having that open communication about where everyone is, what they're capable of doing. I think it can be really easy to be kind of overwhelmed in these like high pressured, fun, like you get stuck in, don't you? Just get pulled into the work. But I think it's really important to like step back and just to check on your teammates, see how everyone is doing. Is everyone okay? like how is the communication doing, like are we feeling good, you know, all that kind of stuff. I think that really adds to the richness of your experience. And I think those kind of team building like exercises are so important for a career going forward.
Brilliant. And am I right in thinking there's already been some discovery work done? A lot of these participants would have had the creative juices flowing for a while, possibly even fleshing out what their products look like already.
Yeah, so I think we had a kickoff session last night, and then the teams were assigned like at about 6 p.m. So they've had pretty much 24 hours already. So there should have been some kind of ideas, like they should be pretty far into their build now. Not pretty far, but they should be far into their build. But I think like you just never know, because people's time constraints might be different. Like there might be some teams that can only work 3 to 5 hours a day. There might be some teams that are, you know, able to commit to like 12, 14 hours. You know, it just really depends team per team on what people's commitments are. But I am a facilitator for one team, and I know that they are off to a flying start, that's for sure.
Good to hear. Having Rachel as your facilitator is definitely a helping hand in the hackathon. And I guess that's quite a nice segue into the next question as well. So, you know, hopefully they've already got their formulative ideas, but what are some resources our audiences can draw upon to help identify gaps in the market?
Look at competitors, spend a long time. I think just downloading some apps, seeing what's out there. As I said before, it's a space that hasn't been tapped into that much, but luckily it is kind of a hot space in the last, I would say, probably 5 years. And a lot of the products out there tend to get quite niche. So there's not really one that's like a generic app. So it's really about kind of understanding what is this landscape, and what are the products in a specific niche. And don't get intimidated by products that are already out there. There's so much space to kind of take these products to the next level. Isn't there the quote like imitation is the best way to flattery? This is definitely the case. I think we need to get inspired by what's already out there and kind of introduce even more products. So yeah, in terms of resources, I definitely look at what people are already doing in this space.
Good tips. Anything else to add from the rest of the panel?
I can say I completely agree with checking, because I think like if we think that, oh, something already exists, so we don't need it, then we'd still be using like a period tracker that was designed, you know, 10 years ago, apart from like what most people I think use, me included, is flow. Do you know? So like if you're thinking about, you're starting to build a product already, see what's out there, see what can you add to your project that will add something better than what is already out there. So maybe that is the case of, it's just like, I don't even want to say just, it's important, that user journey, that user experience, or maybe it's that one extra feature that will actually draw someone to use that instead of what's already out there.
I would just want to add that, yeah, completely agree with you both. One of the things that I've noticed, and I hope this is a useful tip, but one of the things that I've noticed developing products is that there's also a difference to what people say they like and want and what they actually want. So as much as I love a good qualitative study, I would definitely see, what's out there, what are the trends in the space, or not even in this space, but in other spaces that could be, imbued by the FemTech, race that we are having lately, and capitalize on what you see happening, because I would definitely say that there's a lot of stuff that you can hear from your users, but then probably you will get a lot of different signals, and what can help you navigate that qualitative aspect is also adding some quantitative information about it. And the more you see what's out there, the more you see how other apps are performing or other products are performing, you can also get some signals from the market itself on how to prioritize the features or the product that you want to build.
Awesome. Thanks for sharing all of those great insights. Imitation is the best form of flattery, I believe, is the quote that we were looking for at the start. And yes, definitely utilize that. Look at the competitors in the space, and replicate. Some of them might even be the judges on the day. So all counts to good points. Question number 3, guys. So from a soft skill perspective, how can you prepare yourself for the week-long hackathon, particularly if you're brand new to tech?
I can definitely take that one. I mean, everything I said earlier, but I think from the perspective of you being brand new, my first hackathon experience was quite terrifying. I think just be really kind to yourself. You're already doing something that is so out of your comfort zone. And just by being there, you are going to absorb so much information. In my time during the 1-year course, I participated in 3 Code Institute hackathons. The first one, I really struggled. I was like full of anxiety the whole time. Thankfully, I had some great teammates that really helped me. But I really struggled with the version control, all that kind of stuff. But by the last hackathon, I was the one who was actually helping each teammate like work through those version control problems and merge conflicts and all that good stuff that'll start to happen if it hasn't already. So yeah, just check in with yourself, check in with your teammates. This should be a fun experience. You are going to learn lots. It is going to be uncomfortable in parts because you are stepping into, a brand new world that is like, can be quite confusing, but like, just go with it. You're going to be amazed by what you have built by the end of this, and you'll have made some like really amazing connections, and we will have the best time on Friday.
I can relate to that. I did a hackathon once, and we built a chat bot, and this was back maybe in 2018. And I thought we were with some devs. I was more on the business side, and I thought, okay, now is the time to build all of that, with a dev. But actually, there were so many, low code tools even at that time where I found myself contributing and learning. And there is it's such an open space to learn off each other's skills. So I definitely do a check-in as well and understand each other's skills, because there's definitely some, I think, blind skills maybe that you don't even realize you have that can put a lot of value onto the project.
Absolutely. Yeah.
What about you, Pablo? Have you ever done a hackathon before?
I feel like I've been doing that for about a year at Play. I was joking with my colleagues because I was saying, I'm joining this panel and then they have to build a FemTech product in 5 days. That sounds very familiar to what we're doing here every sprint. But I completely agree with what you've said. I would say that one of the things that I've identified in my team and in the teams that I work with is that when something doesn't go as expected or well is mainly because we have gone into our bubble of working in our own little task and forgot that we are a team. At Flow, we are a remote first company, and you would see that at first it's a bit daunting to navigate this over communicative culture, but that is actually what helps us move forward together and not just be isolated, everyone doing their own thing, and then eventually just hitting a block because we didn't communicate effectively in the beginning. So over communicate and make sure that you're checking in on your teammates. Absolutely.
I think that's one thing that the teams will have an advantage on, really, actually, is that the whole course is all online and it's all like learn within your own time, so hopefully the students will be kind of used to like the communication that we all have is all on Slack. So hopefully those kind of communications will be kind of okay. And then, joining a huddle or, being able to kind of have those communication channels open and not trying to start them or trying to figure it out. But I think also what's brilliant about the hybrid hackathons is then that you get that bonus, that something magic happens when people are all together, and especially on the last day of the hackathon. Like one of the hackathons that I did was actually the first one we did with Soda Social in Dublin, and there was just a completely different energy, and it was wonderful to see all of the teams together in all one room, because like you said, it's so easy to be in your silo on your own, your personal space, but then within your team space, and then when you kind of like step back again, you can see all of the teams. So it's a really special experience for sure. So
You
just
need to be able to do a high five in the end, you know?
yeah. Well, hopefully with us it'll be a little cheers of course for us.
Brilliant. Well, communication is key, seems to be the main takeaway, and also some exciting bits to look forward to this Friday as well. So yeah, thanks for your insights there, guys. Next up, question on UX UI. So LinkedIn did a survey recently where they discussed the importance of using UX UI to stand out from your competitors. Panel, what are the benefits you've seen from having memorable UX UI, and potentially provide some examples?
I can start with that one. I would love to hear what you think about it. Well, so I read recently that UX and UI are sort of the personality of your product, and I completely love that analogy because it's definitely what sets products apart. You know, the products that we love are the ones that touch us in a deeper way, and that can be a visual experience. It can be a functional experience. It can be because they came to us at the right time when we needed them the most. I was reflecting the other day on LinkedIn, sending me a message on my 10th year anniversary with them, and it really triggered a lot of reflection on my side and saying, wow, I've been actually doing this for 10 years and I hadn't really even thought about it. So a lot of those moments where products become part of your life come from a well thought out user experience and creating those touch points constantly. One of the things that happened quite beautifully Flow recently is last year. For those of you who are Flow users, you're gonna know this. If you are not, the story is we at some point some users start saying, wait, why don't you just create something that I can use to tell my partner how I'm feeling? You know, a lot of Flow's proposition is around female health, but then when you're with a partner, a lot of that communication needs to happen offline, and there was no tool that they could use to actually tell their partners how they're feeling. And we got the team and started to do a POC, and then the POC turned into some good signals. And finally, 6 months ago, we launched Partner Mode. Partner Mode is a feature within Flow that has turned into the most profitable feature that we've launched in a few years. Is a way for main users to invite their partners onto downloading a version of the app that is much simpler, but that allows them to communicate between themselves on every day of their cycle. So with the app as a tool, not necessarily the ultimate tool, but just a tool for starting that communication. They can have polls. They can in this case male partner can know more about what PMS is, how my partner is feeling today, and what can I do to improve that experience or make it better somehow. And it is an offline experience that heterosexual couples have every day, and we decided to use the digital tool that Flow could provide to foster that communication, and it became one of the most loved features by our customer base, but also one of the biggest points of growth for the company. So much so that we're now building a better app for the man. So if we didn't have enough by tackling the female space, now we're tackling the male space because they are the partners of our main users, and they have also, you know, a lot to learn about cycle and female health. So I think it's genius. I think the person that came up with that basically wants to take over the world, because now we have pretty much everyone can use Flow. Uh, so that is just an example that I want to share on why and how just developing something that your users will definitely value can not only make your product successful, but can, you know, become a roller coaster of 3 years of you developing something that is started out by, you know, just an idea that came out of like trying to build something with great user experience.
Great example. Great example. Smriti, anything to add on that one?
Yeah, for sure. By the way, I love what you said, Pablo, about UX UI being the personality of the brand. I think that's really strong. And I think what we need to remember is a lot of these products in the femtech space are quite personal products, right? Like these are, you know, touch points where it's a very vulnerable time. We know that at Elvie, you know, motherhood is tough. And we were speaking to a mother at a very vulnerable time. And the pumping journey, for example, is a very emotional journey, and it's very individual. So I think the type of language you use to your users is very sensitive and delicate compared to, I think, other products. So I think I'd keep that in mind. I think the femtech space is you know, you're talking to a woman at a very, like, potentially at a very sensitive time about a very sensitive topic. So there needs to be high empathy towards more than ever towards the users and the products we build.
Perfect.
I mean, how am I going to top either of these? How am I going to even add? I mean, I totally agree with both. I love the personality aspect, and I love your empathy aspect too, Smriti. Like, and I think the only thing I could possibly add is, first of all, I think that is incredible, the idea from Flow, to have that thought of like taking that kind of mental load away from the female in a relationship where they might be feeling the most vulnerable and they do not have the mental capacity to actually communicate. I think that is genius. And I think it's that kind of empathy also, that empathy of thinking about your customer, and on the space that she might be in using your product. And I think the only thing I would add is that, you know, this is going to be such a rich landscape because there is so little research, there is so little data, there's such a rich landscape of areas to go into. And I think having that empathy of your customer, that this might be a tool about, you know, the menopause or periods or, you know, like fertility. It could be a myriad of things, but depending on that person's community, religion, all these different aspects, that might be a barrier to have these conversations with other females or other community members. So having that rich place of information, and like Smriti was saying, like that, almost like that gentle person who might be introducing them into this information about this topic, whichever women's health topic you've chosen.
It's a responsibility.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Brilliant, brilliant answers there, guys. Hopefully, very informative for the attendees today as well. So the next question, I think we're going to get a poll up for this one, Elvie, if I'm right. So it's about tackling the stigma around women's healthcare. Right on cue, as always. Let's put it to the attendees. Do you believe there is currently a stigma around femcare and femtech? Are the scores in, Elvie? Here we go. Overwhelmingly, yes, was the most common answer, with I'm not sure coming in above no. So, even from the attendees, there does seem to be a conception that there's a bit of a stigma. I know there was a recent survey from Forbes as well, which highlighted female founders struggling to get the necessary funding, and they often equated that to market misconceptions in particular. So I'll put it back to the panel. What do you think the current misconceptions are around female health and FemTech?
I can maybe give an example of Elvie going back 10 years ago. So Tanya Boller, our founder, really was going to VCs 10 years ago, as I mentioned before, and pitching for a product that was for vaginas. And the feedback from VCs was that's very niche as a product, considering that 50% of our population does have one. So I do believe that it hasn't been easy. And 10 years ago, it was, a tough landscape. And today, still kind of when it comes to funding and VCs, it's still an issue. I'm a bit of an optimist. Like, I kind of feel that the stigma is getting removed, and I feel like it's more than ever a time to talk about like women's health. I don't know if it's because my LinkedIn has suddenly become all about women's health since I've joined Elvie, but it is a very positive space, a very encouraging space. I feel like I'm seeing a lot of positivity around the conversation, and we're elevating each other's voices a lot. I think 10 years ago was tough, 20 years ago even tougher, but I feel like today the stigma, I don't think it's as much there as it used to be before. And I do think people want to encourage this conversation more than ever. And it's the perfect time to be introducing products on the market that should have been on the market, decades ago.
I completely agree with that. And we're also seeing it at Flow, for example, with some of our content. For example, Flow is a very content heavy, and a lot of our insights are around content and educational content that we put forward, and we do it in every single aspect of female health, and one of them is sexuality. It is important for us that people recognize their bodies, recognize how to explore their bodies and know their bodies. And we got a lot of pushback, for example, by app stores and by Facebook with our ads around our sex content. We need to tone down our illustrations and infographics so that they complied with what the norm is, because still seeing sexual content from an awareness and educational point of view is still pretty much very taboo. And I do believe that was what in general the female space was also experiencing a couple of years back, where speaking about cycle or even period was taboo and no one wanted to do it. So yeah, it's I think we're moving on the right direction, and we need more products that are speaking about this bluntly, directly, in an informative way, and that create that space for newcomers to join and keep doing it with fresher and fresher eyes. I think that is also very, very important, that we shift the mindset from taboo to what is the new normal, and what can we start saying that we haven't been saying so far.
And I think we all have the responsibility when it comes to that, as users, as women, as men, as allies. It's really up to us to break the taboos that we've built ourselves for a long time as well. Yeah, I'll be the first to say I'm with my water bottle. I have pain today. That's how it is. We need to become a lot more open, sharing it to our friends, our colleagues. It needs to be a lot more. We need to remove the stigma first and foremost. But I do believe with your comment, Tara, it's very different around the world. And there's definitely a big aspect of culture that plays as well. So I can imagine for Flow being a global app, it's, there are complications in different parts of the world.
Yeah. Absolutely. I think that is one of the things that we're constantly keep, reflecting on is yeah, how can we make sure that our product is truly global and inclusive? Pardon me, for example, I mentioned that is the pilot was for heterosexual couples, but we're working on including homosexual couples because they use Flow and we know they use them. And that was the biggest complaint we got from day one when we launched Partner Mode. Why is it just for heterosexual people? So we know that people are driving those debates, and it's good that everyone is doing it and challenging us product builders uh, to come up with better and better products. It's good to check that.
That's fantastic to see as well, like that, that the landscape and the conversation is shifting so much that, before the first thing is almost even launched, we're still thinking about creating it, expanding it for like couples that aren't heterosexual couples, and I think, yeah, like the more that we can all talk about this, that I do believe there is a stigma, but I do also agree that I think it's getting less and less. I think it's up to us all. Like personally, I've always been a bit of an open book. But I'm lucky in that respect. I come from an open culture, an open family, not everyone is that. So I'm happy to take on, the gauntlet and, shout from the rooftops whenever I can. And whenever, like I said, like I have that mental capacity, because like you, Smriti, on Friday, I was, I wanted to achieve all these things, but my brain was not going to let me because of that complication of being in pain and having your hormones all over the place. And I think it's really important it's not just a female issue, like you said earlier, it's 50% of the population. 50% of the population is going to go through menopause, and the menopause is only just being talked about in the public landscape in the last couple of years. Do you know? There's only now, like, think about all of the people that are being late diagnosed with neurodivergency. Do you know, like, there's just so much that is happening. It's an exciting time to think about like launching FemTech products, and also as a woman, it's quite depressing to see like what has not been achieved already, and what data has not been collected, because we live in bodies that fluctuate, that our hormones fluctuate, so it makes it harder for us to be studied. So therefore, almost all products that have been developed are developed on a male human. So it's kind of like a Pandora's box, isn't it, when you open it? But I think it's fantastic to have these kind of conversations, to be talking to you guys and having Soda put this, together so that we can have these conversations from two people in the femtech space. And I think it's really exciting that we're doing this hackathon around women's health products, so it gets even more people talking. And like I said, it's not just like the female, it shouldn't just be on us to teach everyone. Like I really love like the Flow product in that it also allows for like a heterosexual guy who's in a relationship with someone to like learn on their own time, be like, okay, how can I support my partner? Because isn't that what we all want? We all just want some support, no matter if we're in a relationship or not.
Perfectly said. Not quite a nice segue into the next question, which I'll throw back at you, Rachel, because I think you were quite keen to include it. Was, are there any opportunities which breed from women's health being stigmatized?
Opportunities, yeah. I mean, opportunities galore, because there's hardly anything produced. There's nothing but opportunity. I think, like, when we think about it, like, like Smriti said, like, there's things that should have been done decades and decades ago. Like, we've only just like gotten like our menstrual tracker that's amazing, that isn't like us putting it in our calendar every day and like getting a repeat. And now we have like real amazing data that we can collect on our own cycles, because everyone's cycles is completely different. How our hormones change is completely different. Yeah, I just think there's such a vast amount of spaces you can take, of ideas you can have, and how you can build something better on top of what's already existing. I just think it's like 50% of the population, like, we have money. We are happy to use our money. So I think, yeah, I think it's just more than exciting. There's just so much that you can build.
I think that's a fantastic point you added in the end. I think there must have been a misconception that, you know, there isn't the budget or like the financial means for women to actually invest in their health. And
Yeah, we're not living in the 1900s anymore. We have money, we have our own careers, you know,
we're ready
we
to
have our,
spend.
you know, yeah, we have a lot of money too. And especially
Yeah.
in the when you're thinking about that menopausal age and perimenopause. So
Absolutely.
perimenopause, like I think we just spoke about this earlier, is something that can happen and affect a woman for like almost 10 years, possibly. And that's like every single woman it could possibly affect for 10 years of their life. And most often than not, those 10 years are in the prime of their career. So we have the money, and these women need support and they need help, you know? So we got money.
And actually, if you think about, you know, money and investment, it's always been the beauty space, you know, like the beauty space has had so much investment and it's kind of been shifted the attention there. But if it was more wellness and health, you know, the money
It's so
might have
interesting
just gone there.
That's so interesting, because that is actually the space that I come from. I career changed from being a makeup artist into the tech space. And you're so right. Like the focus and the money and the push on how we look is completely overshadowing how we feel and how we turn up in ourselves, as opposed to how we turn up in the mask and the costumes that we put on.
Love that.
Very profound. Yes, brilliant, guys. Loads of insight there as well around that topic for all the hackathon attendees. Throw stigma to the wind. The judges are at the forefront of this industry. They're movers and they're shakers, and they have very deep pockets as well, by the sound of it. So let's see what you guys can come up with. Next up, the global FemTech market is projected to attain a market valuation of $177 billion by the end of 2032, which is huge. And this unprecedented period of change, what current industry breakthroughs have you noticed in the current market?
I can start by, you know, saying that I don't want to use AI because it's sort of like the buzzword for everything these days. But at Flow, we are trying to, for example, one of the trends that we have embraced is try to be more, you know, intelligent with diagnosis of problems, for example. I don't want to call it AI, but effectively is AI. But you know what I want, particularly people that are designing products, is that you shouldn't choose AI first. You should need to understand why you may need it. But in particular, what is done for us is help us join the dots of many different, you know, attributes that you have as a Flow user, to say things like, for example, we've noticed that you have irregular cycle constantly. Use our chatbot to determine if you suffer PCOS, which is one of the most common you know, pathologies that someone can suffer. If you menstruate, you can have it, and it's quite normal to have it. Or for example, around perimenopause. I'm biting my tongue because I cannot reveal a lot of what we're doing on that space. But those you know, using tech in a way that is addressing something that hasn't been addressed is probably one of the biggest, and around perimenopause in particular, we've seen a lot of signals from the market on demystifying it and making people aware of it, making sure that people don't understand that is the end, because it's not the end. And yeah, it's super interesting to see how, we still stigmatize, these things, but I would say that in terms of trends, AI definitely is what we're embracing at Flow, just because a lot of our offering is based on insights, and generating insights becomes more and more. If we want to be personal, you need to become insightful, and becoming insightful means that you need to really understand the data that your users are giving you and build a correct product around it. So that's one of the biggest ones that I've seen and that we are embracing at Flow.
Maybe what I can add is in terms of like other tech as well. I think what's interesting is now we've got the Apple Watch, we've got the steps, we've got the heartbeat, we've got a lot of like sensors and triggers that are getting tracked kind of based on our normal life without really trying. So there's just a lot more access to data than ever before for us to leverage and build better kind of journeys for our users. I think if it was 10 years ago and we would be kind of dependent on temperature checks and you getting a thermostat and kind of getting your temperature check, and now the Oura ring, for example, that you wear on your finger, and it's got all these sensors every day, just keeping an eye on you in a very discreet way. We're kind of fortunate that these sensors and are becoming quite normal and intuitive in our own lives for us to be able to collect even more data to provide better journeys for our users. And that's just the beginning, I think. Yeah.
I think mostly the trends that I've seen is more to do with just conversations, like that conversations are happening, like in my personal space, in my environment, in my workspace. Like I happened to go to a tech conference in Manchester actually about a month ago. It was from the Manchester in Tech Festival, and it was the Women in Tech Unfiltered, and they had fantastic discussions there that I think should be allowed. It shouldn't have to have their own space and their own day and a separate, these are things. I think it was fantastic to see like conversations on the main stage about how menopause will affect or perimenopause and menopause might affect your day-to-day working or in your career, or how things show up. We had there was some panelists there who were talking about how that they had no idea that they were going through menopause, and now they just wish that someone might have recognized in them to say, hey, I think this might be happening to you. And so I think that conversation is changing within that just one generation that is coming ahead of me, and I'm so grateful for that. And I think having those conversations in tech spaces is so important, because again, so other eyes can see the opportunities that are going to be there, and the products that can be built, and just the effects that can have on the population as a whole. Like Pablo has shown, it can benefit not just women, but the men in women's lives. So
Absolutely. Great contributions there, guys. What I'll do with the last 10 minutes is go through some of the questions that have been thrown up in the webinar chat. I've not been ignoring them. I was just saving them for the end, guys. At the start, there's a load of nice press for Flow Health. Lots of happy customers in there. You'll be happy to see. If you scroll down a bit further, I think you start to get the questions around here. So first up, we've got, which products in your view are great examples of innovation in the FemTech care world, other than Flow and Elvie, of course?
One jumped out for me, actually. It's called Natural Cycles. I don't know how many of you are familiar with that, but I think it's a good combination of like, 2024 conversations, and not necessarily being very, like everything needs to be a new AI product or new hardware product or new tech product. I think natural cycles is kind of encouraging that conversations that we are empowered to know more about our bodies in like the most natural way possible. And yeah, being a little bit forward thinking in terms of the conversations around reproductive health. So for me, to be honest, that's one that I feel quite passionate about, and think it's great to see it, get FDA approval. Like that's shifting governmental perspectives as well. So yeah, I think there's it's a good mix of what product needs to exist today, as well as what it's shifting in terms of like society and government at the same time.
Perfect. Yeah, there's quite a few in here, so I'll try and target them towards different members of the panel.
Sure.
One here for Flow Health, so I'll fire it at you, Pablo. Are Flow considering an AI health assistant for women? You have a fantastic base.
Yes, I think that was what I was referring to in the previous question about yeah, we are involving and growing up our knowledge of AI across the business, and I think it's important, not only from a product experience point of view, but also if we want to scale our product, is also very important. Like we still have a very beautiful team of content editors that are actually the people that write everything that you see on the app. But what we're seeing more and more is that if you launch a product today and you want to launch it in 5 different languages, then that the scale shifts, right? So how can you use some generative AI to make sure that your product is localized from day one, and that can help you have a bigger addressable market. So there are like all sort of like implications and usages of AI that we're doing across the business, and I think it's not just us. I think it's there, and it's there to stay. It's just what I don't like is that it's become a buzzword for anyone that wants to say that they are doing something. And I think it's just, as with everything, you need to be careful about choosing the tool or the methodology before actually identifying what is it that you want to do and why. So don't just say that you want to do AI-based products. Just understand what is your customer base and what are your customer needs first.
Awesome. Well answered. One for you, Rachel. In terms of a hackathon, what do you think has the biggest impact, the idea or the execution?
Oh, that's a hard one, because I think like a simple idea that is executed really well is a perfect hackathon project, because it is going to address a problem and simplify a person's access to that answer or the information or help or whatever. I think a project can be as simple or as complicated as it needs, as you can, as simple or as complicated as you want to make it. But I think for a hackathon, the simpler the better. Think about something that you can fully complete, and then if you have extra time afterwards, you can always add to the tech stack.
Sage advice. And I've saved this last one as open to the board because I'm assuming you all might have some contributions on it. So how do teams feel about FemTech being used against their users, e.g. period tracking records being monitored by prosecutors following the US abortion ban? Anything that can be done to protect women in these cases?
That's a tough one. I definitely feel like companies like Flow, for example, are more and more, when you become a global product and a well-known brand, you're in the eye of the storm for these things. And our position is, it's been always, we will never sell or market data from our users, especially because is considered sensitive data. Anything that you log about your period or your cycle is sensitive data. So it's one of those things that probably need a broader and bigger discussion, because is appalling still to feel like, you know, we're seeing these cases of you know, apps or things being leaked. We have founded within Flow the culture of privacy, and everything is, you know, reviewed by our compliance team and our privacy teams, and we're always thinking about how we can build a product that, you know, is personal and careful with, you know, what we are using your information for. So I think baking this into the way that you build products is essential. And, you know, addressing these things in a broader debate is also important.
Yeah, to be honest, not much more to add on top of what Pablo said. That's exactly right. It is sensitive data. There isn't an intention to share that data. And yeah, privacy and security is super built in terms of our product development processes.
Just on a side question, just thinking about like that kind of security aspect, I would have thought that that information is also would be like a HIPAA violation, no? If it was like made like sold or anything like that, because like you're saying, it's private, it's sensitive information. It must be such a difficult, I mean, it's just difficult even thinking about that happening, isn't it? But yeah, it must be such a difficult landscape.
Oh, good. I think we've covered that one off. I think there's a fresh one that's just come in as well. In the FemTech industry, what processes, challenges are involved for assessing government funding and support to potentially increase the impact of your apps/products to offer them either completely free or at least at a heavily subsidized cost?
I think, to be honest, this is a tough one to answer, but I think it's very different in each market. I think it depends a lot on the government, the funding, the healthcare system, the policies. We're seeing a lot of different policies in different countries when it comes to women's health, and same with government support as well. We know that, for example, maternity leave is not great in the US. So Elvie's breast pump is definitely most sold in the US because they need that freedom to pump because they go back to work so soon. But at the same time, there are policies that they're introducing that every workplace needs to have a pumping space within the office. So, you know, I think there are things that are slow, but there's you know, policies that are going the right directions to support the FemTech industry. When it comes to products being either free or subsidized, I think it's very dependent on the country and the healthcare system locally.
Absolutely, yeah. Very, very unique question to, you know, whichever country you're in as well. But I think we're just, you know, scratching the surface of all the interesting debates that will inevitably happen over the coming years, which also makes it a very exciting space to be in. And I think that just about wraps up all of the webinar questions as well. So thanks, attendees, for your great contributions. And that also wraps up the webinar panel as well, guys. So thanks to all of the amazing panelists. I'm sure everyone will agree, some fantastic insights, and also just some inspirational members of the FemTech space. So hopefully all of the hackathon attendees can use all of that, build it into their products, and give them just that little bit extra edge this Friday when we're going to be at Google. I think all of the panelists are going to be there in attendance. Yep. There's going to be a few extra judges there as well. I'll obviously be there hosting for the day too. There's going to be a spread put on by Google as well. And obviously there'll be networking, nibbles and drinks at the end as well when we announce who has won. So lots to look forward to, guys. Other than that, that's everything from me. Thanks all for joining. Thanks, panelists, again for sharing, and I'll catch you all on Friday.
Good luck with the rest of the week.
Yeah, good luck.
Bye,
Awesome,
everyone.
guys.
Nice chatting with you.